Hello and welcome to today's video. So this is the start of a very exciting reading vlog. During this vlog I'm going to be hopefully reading all of the Bloodlines books in the Bloodlines series. So these are by Rochelle Mead and they are basically an expansion of the Vampire Academy world. So this is book one, Bloodlines, and I'm just going to hold this one up now because they're getting heavy. But I did read all of the Vampire Academy series last year, I think it was, and they were so good. I really enjoyed them and I had such a good time that I basically brought these straight afterwards and just haven't got around to reading them. So book one, basically I think it's this character, but randomly in the Vampire Academy series we met a random character called Sydney. I assume it's Sydney because that's the name on the back, but I can't actually remember. And like she just pops up a couple of times, like she's not a big role or anything, but then for this series she's the main character, so like we follow her world. She's not a vampire, she's something to do with like keeping the world in order or something like that. Yeah, so it's like magical and it keeps the human vampire world in order and like all working properly together, and it just sounds so good and so interesting. I don't really want to read it, so this is the vlog for it. I don't know if this series will spoil anything for Vampire Academy. I can't figure out if you have to read that one first and then this one or what. So I guess I will give my thoughts and feelings as I go through, but I'm treating this as its own series, just set in the same world. And if I'm incorrect at all, future Heather will pop in now. Okay, so wait 5 seconds and you'll see that I read the back of it and actually figure out that you're gonna get spoiled for Vampire Academy if you read these beforehand. So yeah, that's the conclusion, but if you wait 5 seconds I'll also figure that out on my own. So yeah, for now I'm going to be picking up book one, obviously starting from the first one, and this is Bloodlines. So let's read the back of it and figure out what we're getting ourselves in for. Sydney protects vampire secrets and human lives. Sydney belongs to a secret group who dabble in magic and serve to bridge the world of humans and vampires. But when Sydney is torn from her bed in the middle of the night, she fears she's still being punished for her complicated alliance with... Okay, so we are already getting a name drop from Vampire Academy, so I'm guessing it's actually spoilery. She fears she's still being punished for her complicated alliance with Dampier Rose Hathaway. What unfolds is far worse. The sister of the Marai Queen, Lisa Dragomir, is in mortal danger and goes into hiding. Now Sydney must act as her protector. The last thing Sydney wants is to be accused of sympathising with vampires, and now she has to live with one. Okay, so this is following on straight, well, I don't know straight away, but this is following on from the Vampire Academy books. Just reading the back, I would say you definitely have to read those first if you don't want to get spoiled. Yeah, I'll check in as and when. I'm just going to be reading these over the next week, maybe 2 weeks, and I'll check in with updates. It will be chaptered down below. There'll be different books, what we're doing, what's going on. But yeah, this is book one. Okay, so I am like 8 chapters into this book. It's good. It's been a bit slow getting into it, but I think that's more just me struggling to read rather than anything to do with the book. I will say is like, I don't think that you can read this series without having first read the Vampire Academy series. There's nothing really like plot wise that is super like bothered by it, but a lot of the characters and a lot of the things that have gone on previously like have been referenced in terms of stuff, but like no explanation given. So for instance, it's been mentioned Sydney helped Rose, but that's it. Like you don't know anything else about the background of it. Like you do need to have read those books to know why and what happened and the friendship and all that. And very quickly, so we'll go into what I'm reading, but like Jill has like come in as like one of the characters, and all we really know about Jill in this book is Jill is Lissa's sister and people want to kill her because then Lissa won't be queen, but we don't know any of the background stuff to do with that. We don't know like why that's important or why you know, the vampires would think that, because none of this is from the vampire's perspective. It's all from Sydney's perspective, who is an alchemist. So I would say you do probably need to read the other series first. You might still be able to like understand this, but I don't think you'd get the full context of what was going on without knowing why these things were important. I would also say there have been a lot of characters come up, and a lot of things have been said kind of on the alchemist side that's quite surprising, because the only alchemist that we met in the Vampire Academy books was Sydney. We hadn't met anyone else, and Sydney's pretty much like making up her own mind and understanding of a lot of things, and the rest of the alchemists aren't quite that way. They have a lot of prejudices, and they definitely speak their mind about their opinions about the undead and stuff like that. So yeah, I would definitely say it's really interesting so far, and I'm really getting into it. The plot so far has been that since we last saw Sydney in the other series, she's basically been kind of on probation. She hasn't had any assignments, and she's had to go and like live back at home. And then an assignment comes up that they want her sister for, but Sydney's not going to let her sister like be sucked into the alchemist lifestyle. So she has now got put on this assignment, and she's re-rolled in like the last year of school so that she can be roommates with Jill, who has been moved to that school kind of like as a bit of like a witness protection type thing, but not really like a witness. People are just wanting to kill her so that her sister isn't queen, and we don't know that much about it, but from what we know so far is we've got Jill and Eddie enrolled at the school with Sydney, and those three are kind of like meant to stick together, with Sydney and Eddie protecting Jill. And then there's one vampire that lives in this town that they're in, and that vampire is also housing Adrian, who has come to help Jill. We don't know what's going on there. We just know that there's been some sort of attack where the rebels tried to kill Jill, and they're saying it was bad but everyone's okay now. But we kind of know that more happened, but not what. And obviously, because I've read the previous series, I know that Adrian can go into people's dreams, so things are being said and Sydney's not understanding how the vampires are keeping in touch, but we know that Adrian can just go into their dreams sort of thing. But I have a feeling that Adrian and Jill are going to be like linked in some way, because it sounded like the attack was worse than it seemed, and then there was a point where Jill got like kicked out of class for being hungover even though she hadn't been drinking. But when they went to see Adrian, he was really hungover and was drinking, and like I feel like there might be a link there. I might be reading too much into it, but I feel like there might be a link. But yeah, I'm on chapter 8. I'm enjoying it. Not a lot has happened so far, but I feel like we're gonna start getting a lot of stuff going on soon. Okay, so I'm up to chapter 14. It's definitely moving a lot quicker now I'm like into the book. So a few things. One, there's like a whole tattoo thing where some people at this school they're at are getting tattoos to enhance their either like athletic abilities or like to get a better high. And Sydney thinks it could be related to the alchemists, but Keith, who we don't like Keith, we do not like Keith, won't have any of it basically because it's his town and he understands. I also definitely think there's some sort of link between Adrian and Jill, like some sort of like psychic thing, like not necessarily like psychic, but like there's something there. He maybe helped her get better in some way, not entirely sure, but whenever he drinks she definitely acts more hungover the next day, so I definitely feel like that's the hints that we're getting. And I'm also like 100% getting vibes between Sydney and Adrian, and then like obviously I knew this was Sydney on the front, but now I'm thinking about it, I reckon this is Adrian, and like is this like saying like there actually are the vibes between Sydney and Adrian? I don't know, but I'm really excited to find out. And yeah, it's just going really good so far. I don't have a lot of updates because I don't have that many thoughts. I'm just really enjoying the process of what's going on. And obviously near the start, I don't know if I mentioned it, but near the start, just for like one quick encounter, we saw Rose, who was obviously like one of the main characters in the Vampire Academy series, and that was like really nice to like see her afterwards, obviously like a lot's gone on since then. And then Sydney at one point was checking through like alchemist documents to have a look at like what's going on, and saw a photo of a protest, and in the protest spotted Dimitri patrolling. So we got like a bit of an update about like what Dimitri was doing and how he was looking. So I don't know, like it's just nice. It's kind of like just these little drops that aren't necessarily anything big, but they're like, oh, and here's a little snippet of what the main characters from the other series are up to. And I don't know, I'm just really appreciating that. And yeah, honestly, I just want to keep reading, so that's what I'm planning on doing. I have a theory, so I'm going to say it in case it turns out to be true, because I always regret not. So the like Strigoi killings of the Moroi that like might not be Strigoi, for the cases where their throat have been slit and then like drained, but it might not actually be Strigoi. I reckon something to do with these tattoos that are being created is going to need vampire blood. That's my guess. We'll see if it turns out to be true. Okay, so late last night, or early this morning, depending on how you want to look at it, I did finish Bloodlines. This is really, really good. I really enjoyed it. So a lot happened since the last time I checked in. And I will say, I think all the things that happened were predictable in the outcome, but not in how we got there. So that was really interesting and like really nice to read, because even though I'd like predicted certain things were going to happen, there were still surprises. So I think the first thing to say is they were using vampire blood in the tattoos, and it was Keith that was supplying them with this vampire blood by draining Clarence and telling Clarence he was going to look into his niece's death. So yeah, knew Keith was going to be a bad guy, didn't quite expect him to be like the mastermind behind the operation, but there we go. And Sydney and Adrian like worked together to, Sydney distracted and Adrian went and like searched his house, and when he found that like the stuff was there to prove it, they like got the other alchemists involved. So Keith is gone, Sydney is now in charge of the area, so that's cool. But he was getting the blood by draining Clarence, which means what about these other vampire deaths that also turned out to have human deaths in them as well? So basically there was two boys who were interested in Jill, Lee and Micah. I expected one of them to do something like betraying them, and like one of them wasn't going to turn out to actually be a good guy, and it was Lee. So it turns out Lee used to be Strigoi and was like turned back to Moroi by a spirit user, which from Vampire Academy we know that's a thing and we know how that works. So Lee didn't want this. Lee wanted to be Strigoi again. He felt godlike and wanted all this, and he didn't see it as being saved. He saw it as like basically like having his life ripped away from him. So he'd been killing loads of people and draining their blood to try and turn back to Strigoi, but turns out can't do that once you've been turned back to Moroi. Yeah, it turns out once you've had a spirit user help you get back, you can't go back to Strigoi again. But yeah, he'd killed quite a lot of people, confirmed 4, but probably a lot more, because he said he'd tried multiple times with multiple like types of people. So in terms of like Dhampir vampires, Moroi vampires, humans. And we found this out because he'd never tried an alchemist before. So he wanted to kill Sydney, he wanted to drain Sydney's blood. Adrian turned up as well, there was a big fight, they both got hurt, but then Eddie and Jill turned up and they basically sorted it all out. Killed the 2 other Strigoi that were there that were like the backup. And yeah, it was really, really good. There's a lot that happened, and yeah, at the end we got introduced to a couple of more characters that are going to be coming in like for the rest of the series basically. So there is a girl called Angeline, who I think we like kind of met in Vampire Academy, but not really. So she's coming in to be Jill's roommate, which means Sydney doesn't have to anymore, but she has decided to still stay at the school, just get her own room. But she doesn't have to do that because she is now in charge of the area. She could leave school if she wanted to, because obviously she has already completed school. She's just repeating a year to look after Jill. And then we also knew that Sonia was going to turn up. Sonia is a spirit user who used to be Strigoi, which we know from Vampire Academy. And then right at the end, the only other Strigoi that has turned back into Dampier that we know of turned up, which is Dimitri. And Adrian and Dimitri do not get along, so yeah, that was literally the last line of it, was that Dimitri was also there. So yeah, it was such a good time. I had so much fun reading it, and honestly, I just want to get on to the next one. This is The Golden Lily. So, let's read the back. Will love lose her everything she knows? Sydney is an alchemist. She protects vampire secrets and human lives. In hiding at a California boarding school, Sydney's life has become irrevocably entwined with Jill Dragomir, the vampire Moroi princess she has been tasked with protecting. She has grown close to those in Jill's royal circle, and to someone in particular. Someone that forces her to question everything the alchemists believe in. Someone forbidden. When a shocking secret threatens to tear the vampire world, her new world, apart, Sydney's loyalties are tested more than ever. Should she trust the alchemists or her heart? Oh, it sounds really good. And I'm just going to get reading and I will check in as and when. Okay, so I thought I'd quickly check in because I've realised I'm on like literally at the last little bit of the book here. And I don't think I've checked in since I started it, which like I definitely should have. So much has gone on. It's honestly been such a good book. Like I've picked it up and I've just kept reading, which is great in terms of like my enjoyment and the book, but it's not so great in how much I've been updating. There's a lot that's gone on. Honestly, I probably should have thought about it before picking up the camera. Basically, I've literally got 50 pages left, so I think what I'm probably going to do is just finish it and then talk about everything and try and like, before I pick up the camera, actually order things in my head so I know what I'm talking about. But essentially, like, there's been so much character development for so many people. There's like a new enemy, there's experiments, there's social dynamics. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's been a really good time so far. I will come and like talk about this properly very shortly. Okay, this was so good. And I have so much to talk about. I think I'm giving it 4 stars. I gave book 1 4.5 stars, and I think this is 4 stars. It wasn't worse than book 1, and I was definitely more interested in the story, but I think that's just because I was already like so hooked. I don't know what it could have done to get the extra half star and be the same, honestly. I just feel it was a 4-star read, so that's what I'm doing with it. Maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know, but for now, 4-star read. So this is book 2, which is The Golden Lily. And yeah, I can't believe that I didn't check in at all whilst reading, but I didn't. So let's just try and rectify that. I'll talk about everything. I can remember any of the big points and all that jazz. So the main premise at the start of this book was different experiments and basically trying to figure out why Strigoi that had been turned back to what they were before they were Strigoi, so like ex-Strigoi, couldn't be turned into Strigoi again. There's like loads of experiments going on, a lot to do with that, and basically kind of figure out like what is the reason for this, and is there something that can be scientifically, please stop eating the wire, and is there something that can be scientifically proven? How does it link to like spirit magic, and how is that all involved, and could it somehow like become a big cure for everyone? Which, I mean, is fair enough, but like that's pretty much it. We found out just looking at like, I can't remember who it was, but basically like a vampire who'd been turned and turned back, and the same type of vampire who'd never been turned. A spirit user couldn't like tell any differences in them like using their magic. and that's it. Like, they've sent off blood, they're gonna do more research, but that's it. Like, it didn't really go very far, even though it seemed like it was going to be like the main story point. So there was that. Then we also had like a magic storyline going on there, and we had a Miss Terwilliger. I'm not actually sure how you say the name. Basically, was getting Sydney to read loads of different like spell books and translate them or just write them up as notes, but Sydney was refusing to do any of the magic because it like went against like the alchemist way and what she believes in, that humans shouldn't have access to the magic, so she was just reading them. But with all the events that end up happening in this book and everything going on towards the end, we do see Sydney like change her tune a little bit and does like use a bit of magic to help people out and find people and yeah, just be able to help the gang out, fix the problems. She does like decide that she is willing to use magic. Throughout the book we also had a load of like romantic storylines between like numerous different characters. It definitely seemed like quite a topic that was at the forefront, but none of these like storylines, except for one at the very end that I will talk about at the very end, none of them really seemed concrete or certain. They all just kind of seemed like to make them more relatable and more seem like real people, honestly. So I'm not really going to talk about any of them, but I do think I'd mention there were lots of different like romantic pairings going on, but until the very end, which I'll talk about in a bit, not really anything of note. So the main thing that we learn in this book is that vampire hunters are real, but not in the way that we'd think they were. There's basically this branch of alchemists, like, but branches in like they branched off back in like medieval times, that are like vampire hunters essentially. They've gone a long time, obviously, since like before medieval times, without being detected, and that's because they're mainly just kill strigoi. But they don't only care about killing strigoi, it's just a way to go undetected sort of thing. But we learn about them because they set their eyes on Sonia and basically believe she's still strigoi and don't believe that like that can be changed back. And yeah, they basically end up at a later point in the book capturing her and getting ready to kill her. Luckily, like, the gang comes in and saves the day, so like with a load of guardians as well, they do save her so she doesn't die. But that's kind of how we get introduced to them. But then they can't be found again afterwards, except for there is one guy who like was a part of it but got kicked out for helping Sydney get in with them to talk to them about Sonia. And he's Trey, and he's still going to the school, so like they might be able to get some information out of him, but it didn't really seem like that was like a point they were going to focus on. He just kind of like came back to school, and it was very much like, well, can still be friends. But my main takeaway of this seemed like they were alchemists obviously, but like a very different branch, like not alchemists as we know them. But they were much more extreme and had much more extreme views on the vampires than the alchemist branch we know through Sydney. And then right at the end we kind of learn that, well, along with Sydney, we learned that alchemists have been keeping a lot of things from her, including a guy named Marcus, who is an ex-alchemist, and they pretended they don't know who he is or recognise the name. But also up until that point she didn't even know that ex-alchemists were a thing, and she just learns a lot that like they don't really care about her, they've been keeping things from her, and they kept the whole like attack on the other side of the alchemist away from her, so not very happy about that. So after this she goes to see Adrian, and when she's there Adrian basically tells her how he feels and like confesses his liking of her. Like, I'm not going to say confesses love because that's a bit much, but yeah, and kisses her. And she kisses him back, which confuses her even more because he's a vampire and she's an alchemist. That's not okay. Humans and vampires can't intermingle, even though that's what she's been doing for like 3 months or however long she's been there now. And yeah, I feel like that's an important note because looking at the rest of the book covers for the series, like even the one I'm going to pick up next, I feel like it's fairly obvious that like they're kind of like endgame, and honestly I quite like them together, so like I am down for that. But that was just like a little thing that happened right at the end, but because it happened right at the end it makes me think that that's where the next book's going to pick off. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had such a good time. Okay, hello. So my camera died last night, but I was pretty sure I was literally just about to like say I was finishing with book 2 and going to move on to book 3. So now let's move on to book 3. I have since started this, but I'll still read the back and then talk through my initial thoughts. An ancient magic, a heart-wrenching decision. Sydney Sage is an alchemist. She protects vampire secrets and human lives. In the aftermath of a forbidden moment that rocks Sydney to her core, she is struggling to decide between following her alchemist teachings or her heart. Then she meets a luring, rebellious Marcus Finch, a former alchemist who is now on the run. As Marcus pushes her to rebel, Sydney finds that breaking free is harder than she thought. There is an old and mysterious magic rooted deeply within her, and as Sydney searches for the person attacking powerful young witches, she realises that she must embrace her magical blood, or else she will be next. Ooh, but yeah, I'm on page 96, which is actually like partway through chapter 6. I was just too tired to keep going. But this is so good so far. So we've already had like Sydney use her magic again, and she's tracked down Miss, I'm never going to remember this teacher's name, Miss Terry Willock sister, and essentially this sister is the one that is like killing people. She kills young people who haven't yet like properly dove into their magic, so that she can like stay young and get more powerful. So that's kind of like that bit. And then Sydney, along with 2 others, got invited to Sonia's wedding. So we had like a couple of chapters of that, and whilst there she asked about this Marcus character again, and the alchemist yet again denied knowing anything. So she decided to get Adrian's help and perform like some more magic to try and track him down, and it didn't exactly work, but she does know kind of like what city he's in now. So yeah, there's that. And then also the teacher, I'm just going to start calling her the teacher from now on. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce his name. She has asked, once Adrian gets back, if Sydney will go to Los Angeles and try and find other magic users to give them kind of like talisman to stop her sister being able to find her. And the teacher wants to like find her sister herself so she doesn't get killed, so she can like just stop her without killing her. That's the basic premise of what's going on so far, and I'm really enjoying it. It's been a really good time. It's honestly just like a really fast, really interesting read, and yeah, really happy I picked it up. Okay, so much has happened. I'm like this far in. What chapter am I even about to start? Where am I? Chapter 19 I'm about to start. So I've read quite a bit. Really, really good. So basically, like, Sydney found Marcus pretty quickly, and like over the course of like, you know, the last however many chapters, there've been like numerous meetups both with him and like other people in like his little gang, and essentially she needs to like kind of be accepted by them. She needs to complete an act against the alchemist that's like actually risky and could get her in trouble, and at that point she can get basically like her tattoo tattooed into that'll break any like compulsive spells that the alchemists have put on it. And then after that, if she chooses to, she can get it permanently inked over, which is the only way to make sure they can't like capture her and put that into it again. But she hasn't decided if she wants to do that or not. So yeah, but that's where we're at. And right now the chapter I'm about to start, she's like on a plane. I mean, I started reading it and was like, yeah, I really should update. But she's on a plane and she's going to go to St. Louis, I think that's how you say it, because that's where the facility is for her to complete her traitorous act, which is essentially going through like security video and seeing if she can spot one of the warriors who are like the branch of the alchemists that were in the last book that like aren't so good and aren't so nice. Yeah, she's gonna hopefully do that. We don't know the plan, we just know that she's going there, and it's under the guise of like going to like a Christmas like religious meet up that the alchemists do. So we'll see how that goes, but it's been really interesting. And the other side of things is obviously we've got Veronica, who is the teacher's sister, and Sydney and Adrian have basically managed to go around and I think they managed to get amulets to 5 out of the 6 girls to like protect themselves. The other one died, but yeah, so that's to like protect them, and like hopefully Veronica won't be able to find them. But in the process of doing that, Veronica has found Sydney. She doesn't know who she is or where she is, but she managed to appear to her in the dream and be like, I know you're hiding from me, I've caught you scent, sort of thing. So that's not going very good. But the teacher has been teaching her like loads of like magical things and how to protect herself, things like throwing like fireballs, and she's now got like a pet demon that's a dragon that will hopefully protect her and like warn her if like dark magic is nearby. Yeah, that's like the other storyline. And then obviously throughout that, her and Adrian have been spending a lot of time together, and she's still not admitting that she likes him, but it's very clear that like she does. In terms of the other more like side characters in this one, we've got Jill, Eddie and Angeline. Basically not a lot going on with them. So Eddie and Angeline were dating, are dating potentially. Angeline's also like got something going on that Jill and Eddie aren't trusting. They think she's got a devious plan because she's going to basketball games. I don't really know. And Jill likes Eddie and Eddie likes Jill, but neither of them have told each other. And Jill's not happy that she can't go home for Christmas because obviously like, she's the one they're all there for. She's the one like they're all protecting, and she wanted to go home for Christmas and she's not going to be able to. She's got to stay at the school. I think they're actually all going to go up to like the other vampire's house and spend Christmas there. Yeah, really good so far, really enjoying it. And honestly, like, it's just such a nice easy read, so I'm going to keep reading. We'll see what happens. I don't really have that many predictions because I feel like there's only really one line that it can go through. Either she's going to succeed or she's going to fail. And there's 3 more books in the series, so I assume she's going to succeed, but I guess we'll find out. This is so good. I've literally just finished it. So what happened? Turned out that Veronica, the like teacher's evil sister, wasn't actually behind everything. It was like the check-in girl from the inn, which I didn't see coming either, so that was good. Like, that was actually a shock and it like surprised me, so I really enjoyed that because I haven't truly been surprised yet. And yeah, she'd already taken Veronica's like magic. She was like the second person that she took from, so yeah, very shocking. Really enjoyed that twist. And it's kind of like not concluded as to whether she's like still out there like running around or not. She was in a fire and no body was found, but it's kind of been left quite open-ended, so I don't know if we'll be exploring that like further or not. But yeah, that was really good. Then we also had like Sydney, who managed to like break into the alchemist's security and get proof that they're in communication at least with the warriors, and she managed that. She was going to run away, but she didn't end up running away. However, her like tattoo has been like injected, so it can't control her anymore. So yeah, that was interesting. Her and Adrian eventually like agreed that they were just together, but it was to be kept a secret. And then her sister turned up right at the end, and her sister's staying with her, like posing as like her cousin. So that's how we left it. So much to do, so many things, but yeah, it looks like she's gonna manage to stay undercover with the alchemist. But obviously with her sister now turning up, a new alchemist just got her tattoo and everything, it's thrown quite the spanner in the works. So I don't know where we're going from here, but I'm really excited to find out. So with that in mind, book number 4, why not just start it? This is The Fiery Heart, which is book 4, and let's just read the back. When pulses quicken, no secret is safe. Sydney always believed that alchemists were born to protect vampire secrets and human lives, until she met Marcus and turned her back on everything she once knew. But she's not free yet. When her sister Zoe arrives, Sydney can only tell her half-truths about her past, and with every word she risks exposure and the fatal consequences. Consumed by passion and vengeance, Sydney must choose her path once and for all, even if that means harnessing her magical powers to destroy the way of life she was raised to defend. The smouldering 4th instalment in the best-selling Bloodlines series. Let's get reading. Okay, so I'm only on to chapter 4, so not a lot has happened yet, except for the fact between like the last book and this book, a month has passed. Like, not that much is going on, it's just every day to day we're kind of getting there, although Sydney has been like properly like initiated into the coven now. She's like properly in the coven. I don't think like not much else different has happened from that, except for the fact that very interestingly in this book it's dual perspective. We get a chapter from Adrian and then a chapter from Sydney, and then chapter 3 has been from Adrian, so I assume it's going to continue on that way. So I just thought that was interesting. I thought I'd check in and say, because obviously the first 3 books have just been from Sydney's perspective, so it's really quite interesting to get a second perspective and like know what's going on when like one or the other isn't there. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Okay, hello, it's Heather from the future here, editing Heather if you will. I don't know where anything has gone since that first clip of the fiery heart. I have nothing else from it. I don't remember the exact specific of the book, but I know stuff that like is important definitely should have been mentioned by me, which I thought I had. Honestly, I don't know where the clip's gone at all. But by the end of the book, I remember like we end up with Sydney's sister turning her into like her dad, and therefore the alchemist, for her like relationship with Adrian. And like Sydney's been like shipped off to some like re-education centre. That happens right at the end, and there's just a load of stuff that happened in this book. Like, it really kept twisting and turning, and the big struggles throughout this one were hiding things from Sydney's sister, deciding who to trust and who knows what, and just generally like figuring out like the gang and outings with the gang, and getting everyone to kind of like behave more cautiously around her sister, but also her sister like is just not okay with a lot of things. I remember there was one scene where their dad came to visit and the sister just started halfway through the meal saying like all this shit that Sydney was doing incorrectly, even though her sister's like never worked a job before and like has no clue really what's going on. And yeah, but it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I don't know where my clip's gone, but here we are. Also, don't have a clip for the start of book 5, so let's talk about book 5. I don't have the physical book in front of me, but I'm just going to read the description that's on Goodreads because I assume it's pretty similar to what's on the back of the book. So it says, Sydney Sage is an alchemist, one of a group of humans who dabble in magic and serve to bridge the world of humans and vampires. They protect vampire secrets and human lives. In the fiery heart, Sydney risked everything to follow her gut, walking a dangerous line to keep her feelings hidden from the alchemists. Now, in the aftermath of an event that ripped their world apart, Sydney and Adrian struggle to pick up the pieces and find their way back to each other. But first, they have to survive. For Sydney, trapped and surrounded by adversaries, life becomes a daily struggle to hold onto her identity and the memories of those she loves. Meanwhile, Adrian clings to hope in the face of those who tell him Sydney is a lost cause. But the battle proves daunting as old demons and new temptations begin to seize hold of him. So yeah, that is what it says. Obviously, me now has already read it, so I can't say a lot, but I definitely was excited to get reading. So let's just go to the next clue. So this one is definitely slower than the rest. I'm on chapter 12 and it's only really been the last 2 chapters that things have really started to happen. Yeah, kind of like the first 10 chapters were just us going over the situations that both Sydney and Adrian were already in. So with Sydney being captured and being in a like a re-education place, and with Adrian like not dealing very well. It's okay, like I'm still enjoying this one, it's just a lot slower than the others. Yeah, it's okay, I'm enjoying it, but it's got a very different pace and I'm really ready to get into the action now, so I'm hoping now that we've had like a couple of things happen that will spur on the action, such as like Adrian's like, no, I'm going back to Palm Springs, we're going to get this sorted, and Sydney's starting to use her magic within the facility. I'm like, come on now, like we can get this going now, come on, like let's get a bit of movement here. Okay, so update. In the facility they discovered that Sydney's a witch. Or, well, that she has human magic. They didn't actually use the word witch, they just said they know all about human magic. So they're now essentially torturing her, which isn't great, obviously. However, on the other hand, before they captured her, she did manage to turn the gas off for like the level that like her living quarters was on. So maybe they won't figure that out. I don't know. And then we've also got Adrian, and he's with Marcus, Eddie and Trey, and they're basically like waiting around. They know what like town she's in, but they haven't got an exact location yet, so they're literally just sat there waiting around, waiting to get like confirmation of a location, and then they're gonna go try and rescue her. But it's basically been said it could be a couple of days, it could be a couple of weeks, so we don't really know what's going on. But very like engrossed, they're really like sucked into it and just want to keep reading. So yeah, I am enjoying it, even though it was a like slower start, but it's definitely picking up the pace now, and I feel like it's been an interesting book to read. I don't think I expected it to be as different from the others as it has been. So much just happened. Like, what? I honestly just want to start reading the next book, so I'm going to struggle to do this update. But I've just finished this. They rescued everyone out of the what do they even call it? Oh my god, re-education centre? Is that what they call it? We'll call it that. They rescued everyone out of the re-education centre, but then Adrian and Sydney split up from everyone else and got followed by the alchemist, because Sydney's now top of their most wanted. They got married in Vegas and then had a standoff on a helicopter pad getting out. Got back to court and Sydney's family was there demanding her be in their custody. Lisa like refused and said as Adrian's wife she was safe while she was at court. And then we got to the very end and Jill's gone missing. Jill has gone missing, and I know who it is. I already know who it is. Basically at one point, it was very minor detail, but at one point Adrian got a call saying that there'd been someone like knock at the door for him back in Palm Springs asking for him and Sydney, and the description was just like blonde with glasses, and I was like, that witch didn't die. I can't remember if it was the last book or the book before this, but like they weren't sure if the witch was dead that had been coming after them, and yeah, the witch isn't dead, I'm telling you. In this book here, we're going to find out that the witch took Jill. That's my prediction for you, but I don't think it'll come true, but that's what I'm predicting. So yeah, let's talk about book number 6, which is the last book in this series. I actually can't believe how quickly I've been reading this, like it's actually ridiculous, but let's give it a read. They will be tested, their forbidden romance exposed. Alchemist Sydney and Royal Marrow Vampire Adrian find themselves facing the wrath of both their kind. When the life of someone they both love is put on the line, Sydney risks everything to hunt down a deadly former nemesis. Told you, it's going to be that witch. Meanwhile, Adrian becomes enmeshed in a puzzle that could hold the key to a shocking secret about spirit magic. A secret that could shape the entire vampire world and alter his and Sydney's lives forever. Love will conquer all. Let's see what it's all about. Okay, so it's the next day now. I'm going to talk about what I've read of this book. I am on chapter 10, which is 150 pages in. Jay, who's over there right now, being rude, very rudely made me stop reading last night. Very, very rudely.
Explain more.
I would explain it. Yeah, we'd agreed that we were going to turn the light off when like I finished my chapter, because Jay had finished what he was reading, and then the chapter ended and I needed to keep reading, but he like really stuck to his ground and wouldn't let me read one more chapter. But I'm going to talk about the ending of the last chapter first, because that was such a cliffhanger that it was so weird. So basically in one of the like camps where a lot of the Dampier like women live, Adrian had like ran into his uncle, which like wasn't a good thing, but his uncle was like getting a bit, we don't know if it was actually aggressive or if he was just drunk and stumbling, but essentially Dimitri jumped on him. So this is a conversation after Dimitri's jumped on him between Dimitri and Adrian. Thanks, I told Dimitri, though I don't think we needed quite that much intervention. I was holding my own. He's an animal, growled Dimitri. He has no business being here. Well, I suppose I stopped and reconsidered Dimitri's words. Do you know him or something? Dimitri eyed me. Yes, do you? Yeah, I said, he's my uncle, Rand Ivashkov. Oh, Dimitri's hardened expression didn't change. He's my father. And that's what I ended on. And that rude person over there wouldn't let me keep reading to find out what the hell was happening. So that's where we're up to. But I don't think I've checked in at all since like starting this book. The first couple of chapters of these books are never great once you've started the series, but that's because they were very much written, intended to be read as they were coming out, which if I wasn't like reading them back to back over this like course of a week, it would be absolutely great, because the first couple of chapters are a little bit info dumpy in the way they give you like a quick recap of who everyone is. So, you know, for instance, it was re-explained that Jill was missing. It was re-explained how Jill was related to Lisa, but like done in like conversational style. But they're a little info dumpy and I always find them a bit of a slug to like get through. But once you got past that point, really great. Essentially, how do I explain this? So the teacher, Jackie, she showed up at this like vampire, you know, the royal vampire court to see Sydney, turned Sydney into a cat to get her out, to go find Jill, because something had been left on her doorstep to help find Jill. So that's what they were like going to do. So yeah, Jackie, Eddie and Sydney went to like do these little, basically a bit of like a mystery tour. They were finding clues, and then they've basically figured out that the witch, oh, I have updated because I told you the witch was back. Yeah, that witch, like they're confirmed it was definitely her. She's back and she's taken Jill, they think. Yeah, so that's what's happening there. And then Adrian showed up as well, but whilst Adrian was still at court, him and Nina were going into like dreams together, spirit dreams, to try and find Olive, because Nina was basically doing it so much she was making herself like actually like crazy. She was having like a psychotic break. So Adrian was trying to take some of the spirit away so he could use more and she would use less. And then essentially they found Olive, like the time that Adrian was like, we're going to do this once, like after this time like we have to stop because it was getting too bad. And this was after he'd left, but he'd agreed to once more after he'd left. And Nina like just decided to give it all of her like magic, all of her power. So yeah, she basically just started screaming because it was too much for her and she was starting to break down. But Adrian caught a sight of Olive, who was pregnant and had like a necklace thing on. And then when there was a video call later on, because they figured out they were missing from court, that is Lisa, Rose and Sonia had figured out that they were missing from court, so they video called and was like, you're not meant to have left. He showed them the picture and Dimitri recognised it from being from one of these like camps. So they've gone there, they've found Olive, and they were just about to get to the bottom of it, and that's when all this stuff happened with Adrian's uncle. However, I think, this is my theory, they think Olive's pregnant from a Maroi, because that's how it works. Like Damphirs and Damphirs can't like create a child. But both Olive and Neil, who are the two that were together, like the two Damphirs that were together, which is why we think she left, because she had leaving Neil, they were both touched by spirit, and I reckon that's going to have something that means it is his kid, not some random Mariois. But we're about to find that out. So yeah, I'm going to keep reading. A lot's going on. We're probably going to find Jill, find out what's going on with Olive, and find out some weird things to do with spirit. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep reading and I'm really enjoying this book. So that's the update. Okay, I'm up to chapter 15 and so much has happened. So much has happened. I'm still really enjoying it. I'm having a good time. I'm kind of ready for us to get a conclusion. Like, you know, there's not that much left now. There's like 100 pages, like pretty much, and it feels like there's just a lot that needs to happen in that time to like get everything concluded. Yeah, so Alicia the witch did have Jill, but she gave her to the warriors. They've now like defeated Alicia, they've got her frozen, and in like 24 hours they're gonna unfreeze her to like try and get answers of a more concrete, like where is Jill, if she knows, although she might not know because no one thinks the warriors would have actually like told her a location they're keeping her. So that's going on. The alchemists also found them and found out they weren't at court. They Marcus has been working with them again, and they found out Marcus was in Palm Springs and they were with Marcus when they found him. So they've got out of that, but the alchemists now know that they can like hunt them down and look for them. So yeah, we are literally about to get Sydney and Eddie going to the warriors, like undercover. They've got like appearance altering magic on them, so they don't look like themselves. And we are like about to go into that and discover that. We've also got Adrian, who is going to go and interrogate Alicia to try and find out more information. And then also, since I last checked in, Olive is dead. There's a Strigoi attack at the camp that we're in, and during that time Olive went into labour. Olive is dead, the child is alive, and before she died she confirmed that the child was hers and Neil's, which is something to do with spirit, and like the aura looks different of the child. So right now Adrian's mom is like with the child at Clarence's. Clarence is like the older vampire that lives in Palm Springs full time from books like 1, 2 and 3. So she's there and no one knows about the child, and they haven't yet told Neil that it's his child. So yeah, I think they're like the main points of what's going on, but there's like still lots of little like side things happening here, there and everywhere, including that like Adrian's still hearing his like dead aunt's voice, including the fact that this law that they're trying to pass still hasn't passed, including the fact there's still like a cat and a dragon back in the vampire court that they've just like left for someone else to look after. Lots of different little things, but there's just so many little sort of things that also need concluding. So yeah, really excited to keep reading, and I'm going to do that now because I really want to finish it tonight, because it's the last day of June as I'm recording this right now, so I want to finish it tonight. So I'll finish it in June and can get it in my June wrap up and get this video finished and edited quickly. Okay, I finished the book. I finished it last night and it was really good. I've decided to give it 4.5 stars. The ending was just a bit much for me, to be honest. It's a difficult one because they ended up with Olive's baby. Adrian and Sydney kept it because that's what Neil wanted them to do, to keep it hidden. But it's all just a bit, well, like, I don't know, like, I don't care about that sort of shit. Like, I don't read books that have like a family aspect or like children in or like babies in, like any of it. I just don't. And that was a large part of this book, was them looking after the baby. I think Olive died around halfway through. Yeah, so I still really enjoyed it, but I can't give it the full 5 stars because that just like really annoyed me. Like, and I could go into more detail as to why. Like, obviously it wasn't the worst thing. It's good that, like, you know, it was shown as like a responsible thing and all that, and like I know that for probably the age range that this book is aimed at, it's a good look at like responsibility and stuff like that. But for me, reading it, just wanting to enjoy it and have a good time, I didn't enjoy that aspect of it, so I can't give it the full 5 stars. Having said that, it was so good. Yeah, really happy I read it. I know I didn't check in loads with this last book, but honestly I was just reading. I even used a couple of tabs, like that's how much I was like enjoying it. And yeah, like it was a good time. I don't know where I last checked in, but essentially they found Alicia. She tried to kill Sydney and Eddie, but Malachi Wolf came in and helped save the day. And then they found out that Jill was being held by the warriors. Sydney and Eddie went undercover with the warriors to try and find out more information, stole a laptop from one of like the top guys that had loads and loads and loads of information on it, and with the only thing Adrian had managed to get out of Alicia was the location, and the only thing that wasn't on the laptop was the location. So it all came together and they managed to do it. Sydney then called up the alchemist and was like, I'm going to give you all this information, you're going to help us, and also you're going to give me my freedom after we're done, because I'm going to give you names of people who've been like colluding with the warriors. And it all worked out, except right at the end we did find out she gave 4 names over. The 5th was her dad, and she didn't give him over because she used it against him so that her sister could like see their mom again and stuff. So yeah, it was interesting, it was good, I had a good time, I had a fun time, and I really enjoyed the series. And I'm kind of like happy with how it ended. Like, the world does kind of seem very complete. Like, you know, there's no more books in this world. But also, later down the line, another book series was released. There's plenty of other characters that could be looked into and are like as interesting as the ones that we've seen the first 2 series from. So yeah, really happy with it, really enjoyed it, glad I read it. So these are all 6 of the books. We've got a 4.5 stars, a 4 stars, a 4.5 stars, 4.5, 5 and 4.5. So yeah, overall really good home, had a really good week and really glad I read them. So yeah, thanks for watching. Do like the video if you liked it, subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content like this, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye!